series. Lesson 6, today's lesson is called His Varnashram Challenge. Between 1965 and 1977, Srila Prabhupada wrote dozens of books, opened over 100 centers, and initiated thousands of disciples worldwide. By 1977, his non-stop sacrifice had taken its toll on his body. Returning to Vrindavan to continue translating the Bhagavatam into English, Prabhupada said that his days on earth were numbered. When a disciple later asked if His Divine Grace had any regrets, Prabhupada acknowledged he had, quote, one lamentation. Oh, okay. Read that again. Start from...
When a disciple later asked if His Divine Grace had any regrets, Prabhupada acknowledged he had one lamentation, that you have not finished translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. No, that I have not established Varna Ashrama. 50% of my work is incomplete.
Sometimes that quote is contested, but it comes from Abhiram Prabhu, who was Prabhupada's nurse in his last year, and sometimes the tape recorder wasn't on. And so, Prabhupada, it's Abhiram, and the one who said that you haven't finished the Bhagavatam, that was Brahmananda Swami at the time. But it wasn't recorded. So, but you can hear it if you go to the memory series, Prabhupada memory series. It's on DVD number 28, where at different times Abhiram is giving a memory, and it's right there. The timeless culture that shepherds us from the material to the spiritual realm. Varnashram appears throughout Prabhupada's teachings. Yet, His Divine Grace had been so intent on spreading Krishna consciousness, he scarcely had time to demonstrate Varnashram's practical application in the modern age. Indeed, only in the last years of his life did he identify Varnashram's social and spiritual benefits as the key to attracting humanity en masse to Krishna.
This is the next aspect of Krishna consciousness, which I wish to push forward. On these farms, we can demonstrate the full Varna Ashrama system. If these farms become successful, then the whole world will be enveloped by Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. So, Prabhupada said that, and Tamal Krishna, Jai Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was so enlivened by what he heard that he wrote a letter to Hari Shauri to report to Hari Shauri what Prabhupada said, because Hari Shauri was just in the process of closing on the best ISKCON farm I've ever been to. It's called New Govardhan, and there it is in Australia. I mean, that was in 77, but they got the land at least, and it's many acres. It's very big, I think hundreds of acres. And now it's so well managed and attractive. I mean, they have a K through 12 school. They have their own dairy. They work oxen. They got the whole thing. They got a yoga village where they attract yoga types to come and learn yoga, and then a lot of them graduate and become devotees. Yeah. So I've been there twice. It's really wonderful. You ever get a chance to go to Australia? Go to New Govardhan. Srila Prabhupada's Varnashram vision wasn't some wistful throwback to Vedic times, nor was it a utopian scheme for creating heaven on earth. Rather, it was the mature fruit of his global preaching, training and restoring even degraded people to the spiritual plane. let's take a look at how our founder Acharya's application of Varnashram to ISKCON and the world evolved over time. So this is very interesting. You see how Prabhupada had his attitude toward applying Varnashram to ISKCON evolved during his 12 years. So here we go.
1966 to 1973. Forget Varna Ashram.
The majority of Prabhupada's preaching years, 66, he's forget it. From 1966 to 1973, the majority of his preaching years, Srila Prabhupada often dismissed Varnashram as impractical.
Therefore, this is the panacea.
Panacea, cure-all.
Panacea. Oh. Therefore, this is the panacea to engage everyone in Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna. This is the only remedy. Now, you cannot again introduce the system of Varna Ashram.
Yeah, that was in a Gita lecture early on, which is typical of Prabhupada's remarks about Varnashram in the early days. During this period, Prabhupada's priority was to put a head back on society. For example, quote, "At the present moment, the society is headless, a dead body, or head cracked, crazy. Therefore, there is a great necessity of creating a class who will act as brain and head. That is Krishna consciousness movement." So he was really trying to pour us as much as possible into a Brahminical mold. That was in a 4th of July lecture in San Francisco. Since Brahmins are the head of the Varnashram social body, as much as possible, Prabhupada was engaging his disciples in Brahminical activities, chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping in the temple, studying and distributing his books, staging spiritual festivals, and so on. Still, Prabhupada wanted to give Krishna consciousness to everyone, including people who would not chant. Soon, Krishna would set the world stage to help make Varnashram culture more accessible and urgent, starting with Prabhupada's own followers. So that was 66 to 73, forget it. And now, listen to that, look at this. Whoops, not yet. This is called The World Needs Varnashram. In 1973, owing to artificial manipulation of the oil supply in the Middle East, remember the energy crisis? The modern world experienced an, quote, energy crisis. High fuel prices, long fuel lines, and violence dramatize the folly of a civilization that runs on harmful fossil fuels. I remember there were shootings at gas stations in America because people were lining up for gas, and then they'd be in line for hours, and then if somebody would cut in front of them, somebody would take a gun out and just shoot the guy. They were so angry. It was crazy. Amidst the angst, Srila Prabhupada saw an opportunity. Walking and talking with leading disciples the following spring, so 74, Prabhupada noted that if we could show the public a better way to live, they would be more inclined to listen to Krishna. Okay, Damayanti.
Because if the people are in chaos, how they'll be able to accept the great philosophy? It requires cool brain.
Indeed, a brain nourished by fresh milk from protected cows. Prabhupada had written in light of the Bhagavat, quote, "can assimilate the subtle form of spiritual knowledge," unquote. To show the world a better way to live, Prabhupada's followers would have to learn and teach the fundamentals. Oh, did I just take your line? No, not yet. Would have to learn and teach the fundamentals of Varnashram culture. Okay, read.
The Varna Ashrama College has to be established immediately. Everywhere, wherever we have got our center, a Varna Ashrama College should be established.
Yeah, this is a mind blower. Morning walk, 12 March, 74, Vrindavan. And The devotees were astonished. I mean, this is one of the picture of the Vrindavan walk. There's a young Hridayananda Maharaj on our far left, looking back at Prabhupada like, huh? And then there's a younger Hansadutta on the right side, looking down like, huh? Why was Prabhupada reversing his attitude toward Varnashram? Before he was saying, forget it. But as they continued to walk with him, they began to understand this new direction as an extension of his compassion.
Devotee personally has no problem, but he pushes himself in this degraded society to teach how to live, how to become a gentleman. Otherwise, we have no business. But if we don't give them the opportunity, they'll not be able to come to Krishna consciousness.
Since devotees are already with Krishna, Prabhupada continued, they don't need Varnashram. But the people in general need Varnashram to develop their natural vocations, Varnas, and spiritualize them in stages, ashrams, and to find harmony and fulfillment working together to please Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It wasn't long before Prabhupada would further extend his compassion by telling the devotees how much they too needed Varnashram, humanity's, quote, stepping stone for spiritual understanding. That's in a Gita 231 purport.
1977. Even devotees need Varna Ashram.
On February 14th, notice Valentine's Day. Some of us Varnashram researchers call this Prabhupada's Varnashram Valentine to the Hare Krishna movement. On February 14th, 1977, in his quarters in Mayapur, India, Srila Prabhupada reminded the devotees how important it was for them to inspire and educate people by following Varnashram principles. When a disciple wondered why devotees who were already on the spiritual platform, beyond the designations of Varna and Ashram, should follow the Varnashram principles, Prabhupada challenged his assumption. Okay, go ahead.
Varna Ashrama should be established to become Vaishnava. It is not so easy to become Vaishnava. If to become Vaishnava is so easy, why so many fall down? It is not easy to become Vaishnava.
Why so many fall down? I mean, even a lot of people, even some of Prabhupada's trusted leaders were leaving. They couldn't handle being in an emergency mode the whole time, and they needed to settle over the long run into their true Varna and Ashram. Yeah. The longer Prabhupada stayed in the world to teach, the more he saw how even his own followers would need the Varnashram bridge to come to Krishna. As his life on earth was drawing to a close, Prabhupada knew building that bridge, a bridge the whole world could cross, would be a great challenge. Okay, so the rest of the lesson is the title of the lesson, is Varnashram Challenge. In lesson 5, we saw how Srila Prabhupada developed the Hare Krishna movement's various aspects. To put a head back on society, His Divine Grace mostly focused on Brahminical activities, holy names and holy books, temples and deity worship, initiation and congregation. Yet even inside his early translations and commentaries, we hear Prabhupada and Lord Krishna reaching out to everyone to help build a worldwide spiritual society. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, texts 8 through 10, Lord Krishna offers progressively accessible advice. What's the name of chapter 12? Anybody know the Gita? Yeah, devotional service, Bhakti Yogi. Right. So in text 8 through 10, it's the famous, if you can't do this verses. So, quote, just fix your mind on me, he advises the advanced listener. I mean, pure devotees can do that. No problem, spontaneously. For the less advanced, the Lord then recommends the disciplines of Bhakti Yoga. That's what we're doing. We're sadhana bhaktas. We're practicing devotional service. Quote, in this way you will develop a desire to attain me, because it's in us, deep down. It just has to be invoked by tried and true processes of bhakti that invoke our love of God. What is that verse? Nityasiddha Krishna prema sadhya kabunoi. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the heart of every living entity, is not to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, pure love for Krishna naturally awakens. Just like as Prabhupada gives the example, a child can't walk, but it's in him, it's innate, but it just has to be invoked by practice. And for those not ready to follow strict vows, in text 10, Krishna recommends working for him. In his commentary to that text, Prabhupada appeals to all kinds of readers. So yeah, text 10, if you cannot practice the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga, just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So Krishna keeps extending himself. He wants to work with everybody. And in the purport, listen to this purport, Prabhupada writes. Okay, go ahead.
There are many devotees who are engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness, and they require help. So even if one cannot directly practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, he can try to help such work. Every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor.
So right in there you have Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Land, capital, organization. He's reaching, it's not just Brahmins, it's not just for Brahmins. This
voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher state of love of God, whereupon one becomes perfect.
Right. Whoop. And now a word from our sponsor. No.
In the middle of a class right now, we can talk about my journey. Is that okay? Everyone wants to say Haribol to you, though.
Haribol!
Let me do that.
Since most people live in or near cities, hello, Toronto, it is natural to engage them in building temples to attract everyone to Krishna. At the same time, the modern urge to live a simpler, more natural way of life will find fulfillment the more devotees engage people in building rural communities. Remember that slide? This is the masses of people will be attracted by this rural community development. The more devotees engage people in building rural communities for living the way Krishna lives. Oh, I didn't have to say that because here it is. Go ahead.
So this Krishna consciousness movement is trying to revive village organization, as you are trying here. Krishna, in his natural life, is a village boy in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is a village, but it does not mean that we shall avoid city life or town life. No, every place is Krishna's place. Everywhere there should be Krishna consciousness.
That was Prabhupada's one and only visit to Gitanagari, July 15th. It was called the New York Farm in those days because the New York Temple purchased the property to get milk products and fruits and vegetables for the New York Temple to offer to Radha Govinda. And then it became New Varshana and then finally Gitanagari as the concept for the community evolved, the farm. Srila Prabhupada identified the kind of Varnashram devotees need as Daiva, or divine. His Daiva Varnashram plan contains four essential features. 1, pure devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the goal of life. There's our goal, the cowherd boy. 2, local land and cow economics as the model for sustainable living. 3 Varnashram colleges for vocational and spiritual retraining. That's Radadesh in Belgium. That's the castle. That's not where the college is. That's the original building. And 4, the application of Daiva Varnashram principles according to time, candidate, and country, as Prabhupada famously elaborated on. And, well, you're going to get notes, so you're going to get this, don't worry. But it's in CC, Madhya 23.105, and Bhagavatam 4.854 purport. Okay. Borrowing a phrase from the British poet Wordsworth, Prabhupada sometimes described Varnashram culture as, quote, plain living and high thinking. Prabhupada didn't make that up. He got it from Wordsworth, where Wordsworth wrote a poem, and the first line of the poem, you know what it was? And he wrote this in 1803. Plain living and high thinking are no more. 1803. That's because the Industrial Revolution kept coming in, and it was dragging people away from the land, you know, God's country, into these cities. And they were getting more secular and more crime and poverty and pollution. When Krishna descended to earth, he himself lived this way in the rural village of Vrindavan as a boy, and later in clean and green, that's my phrase, Dwarka city as a youthful prince. If we could show the world a better way to live, Prabhupada reasoned, everyone would eventually take the Varnashram journey home. I mean, to be honest, Prabhus, we can distribute books until we're blue in the face. But if we don't show people a better way to live, a simpler, more natural way to live, then they'll just think that what's in the books is something 5,000 years ago, right? And it's not practical now. Come on, let's be practical. Well, it is practical actually if we do it. But we've been slow to do it, because the way of life, plain living and high thinking, is boring to most people, to the overstimulated people in the city, especially now with social media. My God, it's like crazy. So Wordsworth, plain living and high thinking are no more. He would probably drop dead on the spot if he woke up today, looked around at the billboards and everybody looking at their phones. They don't even look at each other. They just walking down the street. People are just bumping into other people, and you notice that? Somebody, when I was walking down to 40 Beverly, people were running into me sometimes because they were just, becoming cyborgs. All right. Let's see here. There's the late Paramananda Prabhu with 2 of our brown Swiss oxen back in the day. And the girl, I think she's from a German farm. That's what I was told. Okay, on September 4th, 1977, though gravely ill in Vrindavan, that's just 2 months before the very end, Srila Prabhupada told his secretary/servant, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, that he wanted to make one more trip to the West. I mean, practically no body left. Crazy. Prabhupada was do or die, right? All right, Damayanti. Oops, wait a minute. Is that it? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to live a little longer to make more perfect everything. Srila Prabhupada said, will you do this by enthusing the devotees by staying with them, or is there a specific program? I asked. A specific program, he replied. I want to introduce Varna Ashrama. At our New York farm, the biggest problem of life is solved: food.
He didn't say birth and death. He said food. Because in his visit in 76, July 15th, he saw how much the devotees were producing. There's films of this too, where Prabhupada is walking and then he's in the car and Paramananda is showing him a huge potato, and their yield is really good, and the milk production is great, and the number one problem, food, because you can't even hear about transcending birth and death unless you're fed. Prabhupada said this in Hyderabad when they were starting the Hyderabad farm in '75. So all the reporters came and they said, Swamiji, are you Dvaita or Advaita? Right? Are you impersonalist? Are you a dualist or an impersonalist, or what? What's your philosophy? And so Prabhupada, because he was in the farm context, he said, "What is Dvaita, Advaita? Forget that. People are starving. People are starving. We have to teach them how to produce food." Yeah, you can't hear if you're starving. All right. Oh boy, here we go. Finally, we should take note that just a few weeks before leaving this world, Srila Prabhupada highlighted Varnashram in one of his last dictated Bhaktivedanta purports. The last chapter, who knows the last chapter Prabhupada dictated? Anybody know what it's called? Brahma Vimohana Lila, the bewildering of Brahma. By Krishna expanding himself with all the cows, calves, and cowherd boys. Yeah. So there's Prabhupada. You see Jayadwara Brahmachari at the time, just holding up the mic to Prabhupada, because you couldn't even hear him unless it was, right by his mouth. And Pradyumna had by then Pradyumna was actually translating the verses. And then Prabhupada was dictating and doing the word for word. And then Prabhupada's dictating the purports. And that's Pradyumna?
Yeah.
That's right. There's Prabhupada. You can see he's looking skeletal, right? Yeah. So here's an excerpt from the purport, and it's right, listen to this. It's talking about Varnashram right to the end.
Varna ashram dharma, therefore, is essential, for it can bring people to sattva guna. Tamaguna and Rajaguna increase lust and greed, which implicate a living entity in such a way that he must exist in this material world in many, many forms. This is very dangerous. One should therefore be brought to Sattva Guna by the establishment of Varna Ashram Dharma.
Very close to the end of the chapter, text 53. And then Prabhupada, I didn't know this, but Vishaka says this in her book, her memoir. What is it called? 11 years.
5 years and 11.
5 years, 11 days.
Months.
And
Days.
A lifetime of unexpected love. Is that it?
I'm not sure about the whole title, but 5 years is definitely there in the title.
Yeah, right. She says that Prabhupada actually dictated the summary to 14, and then he left. Because at the press, where I was, we were waiting for the latest stuff, and then Prabhupada dictated, or we got it after he passed, actually. And then we were amazed, because it's very scientific. Even though Prabhupada is, he's no body left. I mean, his consciousness is crystal clear, and he's even cracking jokes. He refers to the scientists as the four-headed scientists, because they're trying to be bigger than Brahma. They're trying to figure out the whole universe. And Brahma, he knows it, because he was enlightened by Krishna. Okay. Okay, Prabhus, before we hear your questions and comments, let's review the main learning outcomes for this 6th lesson, his Varnashram Challenge. Damayanti.
Lesson 6, his Varnashrama Challenge, Learning Outcomes. By now, we should be able to identify Srila Prabhupada's one lamentation before leaving this world. Identify Prabhupada's application of Varna Ashrama to ISKCON, 1966 to 1973. Identify Prabhupada's application of Varna Ashrama to ISKCON, 1974 to 1976. Identify Prabhupada's application of Varna Ashrama to ISKCON in 1977.
Yeah, it evolved.
Provide an example from Prabhupada's Gita commentary of Lord Krishna's reaching out to all kinds of people, even those unable to follow the disciplines of bhakti. Identify the 4 features of Prabhupada's Deva Varnashrama plan for ISKCON. Consider why, if establishing Varna Ashrama was Prabhupada's ultimate strategy for attracting the world to Krishna consciousness, we have been slow to take up the challenge.
Okay, so remember to relate your questions and comments to the lessons learning outcomes, and I will now just say the transition to the next lesson, which will be the last lesson of Abhideya, deepening our commitment to his mission. Transition. Having beheld the revolutionary scope of our founder Acharya's vision, in the next lesson we'll focus on finding our individual mission within his greater mission to re-spiritualize humanity. That's what I call it, finding our mission in his mission. Very interesting. Well, you'll have to fight it out. Who was first? You look like a Siamese twins now. All right, well, let's let Jai do it. Wait, we need your scintillating questions, Maharaj. Oh, you got it. Okay, he's coming back. All right, Jai. Where's the? I broke the tie, so you win.
You mentioned Varnashram is needed to become a Vaishnava. Can you elaborate more on that? Why is that Varnashram really necessary?
Yeah. Well, again, by the time Prabhupada, got to the end of his stay with us, he could see that even though he was trying to pour us into a Brahminical mold, in the beginning, and then he said, oh, actually, we don't need it, but the people need to see a better way to live. They need it. And then finally, by the end of his stay with us, as I mentioned, even Prabhupada's GBCs were falling down. Guru, well, no, he was the only guru. GBCs, sannyasis, trusted leaders who, it's not that they didn't love Prabhupada or weren't, but they couldn't handle not being situated according to their natural position. I'll give you an example. From the 8th canto, and it's in your paintings, the Gajendra painting upstairs. So now an elephant can beat a crocodile any day of the week on the land, right? Because he's huge. And if he's on the land, the crocodile's out of his element. But you remember the fight, right? Gajendra was in the water, was in the crocodile's element. And after some time, he was weakening, even though he's a big elephant. So Prabhupada, in that connection, he mentioned in his describing the Leela, he would say, so one may find, I'm just paraphrasing now, but one may find that one may be out of one's element, may not be in the proper ashram, for example, or varna. So if you're not actually, what Prabhupada used to say, rightly situated, according to your natural position, you're going to become very disturbed and weak. And then, I should also preface this by saying, this is in his, the first chapter, I think, or it's in the first few chapters of the 8th canto. Now, he had just finished the 7th canto, and it was at the end of the 7th canto where there's a whole section on the perfect society in the 7th canto. And there's a purport where, in connection with sannyas, where someone who, it's described, there's a word vantashi. Vantashi means if you take sannyas and then you again, go back to worldly life after renouncing it, then you're a vantashi. Vantashi means one who eats his own vomit. It's really gross. It's like you've already, gotten supposedly over, worldly life, and then you try to take it up. So even though he said that at the end of the 7th canto, very heavy. And this is in the shloka, it's not, and then Prabhupada is, making the point, because And then right around that time, a sannyasi, somebody who was really good devotee, did amazing service, especially in Australia. I don't know if you ever heard of my godbrother, Madhavis Prabhu. Prabhupada called him the Emperor of Sankirtan. He could lead, he was always leading the Ratha Yatras in Australia, Sankirtan. And then, but by 76, 77, let's see, 8th canto. Yeah, by 77, he couldn't handle the sannyas ashram anymore. And he actually UPS'd his danda to Prabhupada with a note apologizing that he couldn't. And he just disappeared. And then other people started criticizing him for leaving sannyas. And Prabhupada hated that. They said, because you have publicly shamed him, now he'll never come back. He's my dear son, your dear godbrother. This is nonsense. So then, right after that, he's translating the 8th canto with the Gajendra Leela. And then he makes this point that, so if you can't handle the sannyas ashram, he says, the renounced, then go to the ashram which is more suitable for you. You can go to the grihastha ashram. Just after we've read at the end of the 7th that you're a vomit eater if you do that. But Prabhupada, no, he's extending his compassion further. He doesn't want people to give up. He said, don't give up the fight, but fight from the ashram that you can be strong. That's your natural, because Prabhupada created sannyasis out of teenagers and 20-somethings. I mean, it was crazy. It was like, but Prabhupada did that just to spread it all over the world quickly. Prabhupada called it battlefield commission. If the general gets killed in the battlefield, then you have to make somebody else lower than him, the new general, Okay, so you can be a sannyasi, and yeah, so Prabhupada, he just did that. So, no, I did it again. I forgot your question. Why did Prabhupada?
Varnashram is needed to become a
Yeah, so we have to be rightly situated according to our real Varna over the long term. In the beginning, Prabhupada had us all in emergency mode. Emergency. It was an emergency. Everything was an emergency. But you can't live your whole life on an emergency. In fact, if you look in Gita 247, I think it's 247, where Prabhupada in the purport to Karman Nivadikaraste, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Prabhupada said there's 3 kinds of duties. He said there's there's routine duties, like we all have to brush our teeth. Emergency work, like if there's a fire, if there was a fire right now in this building, we would cooperate so fast to put it out, right? Emergency work. And what Prabhupada called desired activities. Things that are natural to us, that are suitable to our psychophysical nature. So the more Prabhupada stayed with us, the more he saw that he couldn't keep us on this emergency thing. He had to let us settle down into our natural varna and ashram so that we wouldn't give up. Just like me, I was a brahmachari from 1970 to 81. I lasted 11 years as some kind of American brahmachari. But then something changed, and I needed to get married. And I did, and it worked, and it was good. I was able to continue. I didn't give up. I just went into it was the next step, the next stage. Is that right? Okay. You sure? All right, Nityananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, so we read so many important instruction about Varnashram Dharma. So conclusion, what is the best way to please Srila Prabhupada right now as we are beginning our
Individually, I
journey?
mean.
Like right now?
You,
Probably
or
me
you,
or
or it
everyone.
depends on who you are.
Or like, should we distribute his books to make him happy, or should we try to establish this right at this age?
Yes and yes. It's both
It's
hands.
both, yeah.
They go hand in hand. I remember when I was a brahmachari book distributor in the 70s, and then in America there was, well, New Vrindavan was the first farm, and then New Taliban came along in 75, Gita Nagari in 74. It was really empowering when I was distributing books to know that it wasn't just 5,000 years ago in a book, but we actually had rural communities. We were showing beginnings of showing plain living and high thinking in ISKCON farm communities, living the way Krishna lived. That was very, and I was able to direct people very often who would even ask that, well, where can I find this? Well, depending, let's see, where was I? In 70, I was in Gainesville, Florida, that became Krishna House. But we would travel all over the Southeast looking for long stoplights. Because we used to distribute books at long stoplights. You ever hear of this? We would stand, you know how some stoplights are long. So sometimes for 3 minutes, cars would be lined up. And in our young brahmachari speak, we would say, they're sitting ducks, Prabhus. That means they're all lined up. They're just waiting for us to give them books. Well, we were doing books. We're doing BTGs. So as soon as the light would go red again, we'd sprint right back to the beginning, and we'd just go up the line. And if anybody didn't take a book, we'd skip that. We'd skip the next car, because people are just doing what somebody ahead of them did. You know, so they give something. We had buckets, and we would say, food drive 75, because we were starting to feed the students at UF in Gainesville. So people would throw in bills or a coin or whatever, and then I'd always slip the BTG in the back. It was summer, in the back seat, you know, so they wouldn't have a chance to reject it. So how did I get off on that? So when I was actually in parking lots and talking to people at supermarkets and stuff, it was very empowering to be able to point people toward places where we were having rural communities. Yeah, so they go together. It's the sound vibration, and then you want to see the practical demonstration of what you're hearing. So it's really important. And Prabhupada even saw, as you saw earlier in the lesson, that by showing it and not just talking about it, we're giving people an opportunity to actually taste plain living and high thinking as it is. I mean, you have the beginnings of that right in Eastern Ontario. What's the name of that farm? Krishna Devotee Farm? An hour from
Gear phones.
Gear, yeah, it's beginning. It's the start of something, right? I mean, right now they're just like a cuddling zoo or something. People coming to cuddle with cows, but it's something. It's a start, and as you have to have qualified people whose propensity is to work with cows. Yeah. Okay. Is that okay? Prabhuji, you're next in the back.
Prabhu, you mentioned about. Sorry. So you mentioned regarding plain living and high thinking.
Plain living. Is that what you said?
Yes. But nowadays, people often tend to do the exact opposite. They want to live really nicely, and then that means high living and then plain thinking. Yeah, they don't want to know about what's happening. My question
Yeah, we
is,
used to say high living and, what is it? High living and simple thinking or something, just to make a joke. Go ahead.
what are our thoughts generally for people of
Wait a minute,
ISKCON
I'm hearing
about
somebody's phone. What's going on? Oh, all right, I'm gonna close the door. I'm Sorry, go ahead.
So generally, as for Prabhupada, what are our thinkings about high living and high thinking?
High, by high living, what do you mean? High tech, right? Where we have virtual, we wear Google glasses and all this. This is predicted by in Brave New World. You ever read Aldous Huxley, The Feelies, where people lose their humanity? They're just always, living in some virtual reality. It's anyway. So high living and high thing. By high living, you mean what?
By high living, one can be, let's say, someone is rich and then he's spending all this Lakshmi in getting nice things like we are talking about farms here.
Yeah.
So in one sense, we are having farms, but at the same time, we are using a lot of equipments in those farms,
That's
like
right. And
tractors.
Prabhupada didn't like that. He said it's okay if you do that in the beginning if you don't have enough people. But the more people we get who are really interested in that kind of work, what did he say again in Nagari? We do not hate machines, referring to the tractor, but as long as the machines don't make us unemployed. Work these bulls. If you have cows, half of them are going to be girls or boys. The male cow is called a bull, a bullock. So if you don't train him to pull, so just like horses love to run, and what's another thing? Rabbits like to hop, or whatever. Monkeys like to jump. The male cow loves to pull. That's his dharma. If you look
That's
in,
why he's the bull.
that's why he's
He
the.
loves to pull.
He loves to pull. There's another poem coming, I can hear it. Another couplet. So he's just like in Krishna book. How did they get from Mathura to Gokul? Is that right? Gokul and Vrindavan. Yeah. On ox carts. How did the American pioneers go west? On ox carts. Yeah. Pulled by bulls because they're more sure-footed in rough terrain than horses. Horses easily get spooked, and they're not as stable like that. They can run fast. So we think that we're going to live high, but and maybe a few do, but at the expense of everybody else. Like to make a cell phone. You've got to have people working in sweatshops. You've got to rape the earth for her precious metals. You've got to do all these ugra karma stuff, which eventually pollutes the air, compacts the earth, pollutes the water. We just see in our own little enjoying bubble how we're enjoying, but actually it ruins the world. Prabhavantyugra karmanat. Those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done or what is not to be done. Nor cleanliness, nor proper behavior, nor truth is found in them. What is the next verse? This is where Ugra Karma is. Following such the demoniac who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible works, Ugra Karma, meant to destroy the world. And Prabhupada said, this is indirectly Krishna anticipating the rise of nuclear weapons in the modern age. Not the Brahmastra weapons that you know how to release, and it's very specific, and you bring it back. But mass destruction, which we saw starting in 1945. American history, how they dropped the bomb in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And Oppenheimer, anybody see the movie? What did Oppenheimer? He quoted a Gita verse. It wasn't Tanmaya. He quoted that 20 years later. He quoted he didn't say this, but the Sanskrit is Divi Surya Sahasrasya Bhaved yugapaduttita yadibak sadrishis basya basas tattva sasyad basas tattva mahatmana. If hundreds and thousands of suns rose up but once into the sky, they might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form. He was in New Mexico, and they were all, in their bunkers, and there was just, a prototype of the atom bomb, what to speak of today with the H-bomb and all these nuclear warheads. And they saw this flash, and their minds were blown, Like, oh my God, what have we done? We've split the atom, and look what's happening now. This is gonna. And then, sure enough, and then 20 years later, during the Cold War, when it was really going, in the 60s, Oppenheimer told this American, you ever heard of Walter Cronkite?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Walter Cronkite. He said, actually, it's even worse than I thought. Time I am, destroyer of the worlds. He quoted that verse, 11:33 or 33. Yeah. So it's in the name of advancement. Actually, we begin to ruin the whole. And now, what do we have? What do we have? Although the present guy in the Oval Office in D.C., he doesn't believe it, but we have a whole planet it's going to implode. We're ruining the whole ecosystem, the whole climate. It's crazy. In the name of advancement. He doesn't want to do renewables because in the short term, it doesn't make money. Whatever's good for the, it's called preya, right? Short-term gain. He doesn't see shreya, he doesn't see the long term. Yeah. So what the Daiva Varnashram vision that Prabhupada had was actually the revolution to save the planet. Maharaj.
I just wanted to say something about these explosions. Before Nagasaki and Hiroshima, there was the biggest explosion ever happened in Halifax. It was in the first, just 2 or 3 years after the Titanic sank. And it was a foggy day in the Halifax harbor, because we're going there, right? We're going there. And
did you know?
And there was a ship, a French ship, and a Belgian ship. They collided. Well, there were explosives on one of them, and that flattened the city.
Wow.
Yeah, they had as many people die there as was in the Titanic.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Right in the harbor and in the city.
Right by the harbor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's called the Halifax. What do they call it? Shattered City or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
That was the biggest on planet Earth, right here in Canada.
And they were explosives meaning dynamite or something?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big bomb in those days was just dynamite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then, it was FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who commissioned the Manhattan Project to all right, we know the Germans are racing to split the atom. We got to get there first and show our might, before they get it.
Mm-hmm.
Then they got it. They had that test in New Mexico. And then what did they do? They dropped it on Japan in 2 island communities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Whew.
Yeah, interesting history.
Yeah. And this is called, as Prabhupada would say, only thing scientists do is advance death. You can accelerate death. You can't actually, you can't even help the planet live a good life, a sattvic life. And, I mentioned clean and green Dwarka. It was nothing like, Toronto or New York or LA. It was, I mean, even though I do see signs that says a city within a park, because you do have a lot of parks around here, but it's nothing like Dwarka. Big lakes and parks, and it was uplifting. Higher mode of nature. All right. Are you still brainwashed by the modern?
I just have one follow up. Thank you, Maharaj. So basically, if we talk about Nanda Maharaj, in one sense, he was also living a high living life, I'll say, because he had a lot of servants, but he was using them wisely.
How many?
And then at the
How
same
many?
time, sorry?
Oh no, that was good. That wasn't Nanda. But how many cows did he have?
Yes. And then at the
9
same time,
lakh. So that's inconceivable, right? 900,000.
He wasn't lacking anything.
Another poem. Watch out.
And then at the same time, we have some actors nowadays who are kind of, in one sense, sharing Krishna consciousness. Not like, I'll say, is it Gopal Prabhu, the brahmachari, right?
in Chowpatty.
He's going in cinemas and then doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And in one sense, it is a high living life, I'll say. And some actors live like really luxuriously, and still they are promoting Krishna consciousness. So how about that?
Well, what about that? I mean, he's
At least the actors.
he's a comedian. And he's a preacher too. I saw him live in New York, in the Brooklyn Temple. And he had the Indian community, they could hardly breathe, they were laughing so hard. Because he was speaking in English, but then once in a while he'd slip in some Hindi and they just went crazy, you know. But he did it all to make points, because he was making fun of modern society. You ever see Gorg? I mean, he's great. He's a great preacher, actually. So, and why is he going into clubs? And yeah, he's making a big name and then for himself, and he's got a lot of followers online. And Prabhupada gave the example that if you're a policeman, or just the other day, I was walking back from Beverly Street and I saw all these Toronto police, 3 cars, and they were going so fast. They were breaking the speed limit, Prabhu. No, they were chasing somebody. It was obvious that they were chasing somebody. They had to break the law to keep the law. So similarly, a devotee, he might have to use this modern technology. I mean, there's a whole, like I was saying to Damayanti, you're good at this computer stuff. There's a whole, cyber warfare going out there online. 99.9% of what's online is total Maya nonsense, pornography, crazy violence, But the devotees need an online presence too, just to reach people, just to catch them. So we can use it. But I think the real question is, how do we use that? How do we practice yukta vairagya, practical renunciation, without ourselves becoming a victim of it? Yeah, and that is a fine line sometimes. So we have to, and the only way to protect ourselves actually from engaging with modern society, modern mentality, is to have really good sadhana, really good. You'll find this with Dvaisheshika Prabhu. They ask him, maybe when he came here he said this, I'm sure he did. What's the best way to distribute books? Have good japa. Did he say that to you? Yes. Yeah. Because good stuff. That's the way you get that's the way you tune into Krishna, get a higher taste. And so you won't be allured by what you think, this guy's dressed real nice, maybe I could have clothes like that, or this girl, wow, she's a knockout, maybe I can go call her up, or whatever the Maya is. So, yeah. Okay, is that all right?
Thank you, Prabhu.
All right. Muchas. Poem is in there, muchas. Okay, Ishan, first.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. I just wanted to add just one point to the Yukta Vairagya argument. Prabhupada, I don't know, I've heard it from someone, that Prabhupada mentioned this, that like some devotees went to sit to even distribute books in clubs and discos, but Prabhupada said that if you go there, then remember to come back as well. so yeah, it's important in that way.
Don't
My-
presume you're as like Lord Nityananda, right?
Yeah.
See him going into a liquor shop or a bar. He's going to preach.
So my question is a little different from the argument, the discussion that took place. It's about farms, as you mentioned. Prabhupada talked about how it's important through farms we can, implement Varnashrama. So I was just
And we can
confused.
attract people to a better way to live.
So I was just confused, like, so how are we going to do that in terms of, I understand ashramas, but in terms of Varna, how does that happen in a farming community? Because almost everyone is farming or
Okay,
doing
that's a
something.
good question. Yeah, when you hear farm, Prabhupada said it in let's see, there we go. Oops. When he was in Gita Nagari. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is an excerpt from Prabhupada's one and only, it was in the evening at Gita Nagari at what was the temple before they built another building. Quote, so this Krishna consciousness movement is trying to revive village organization. So village, it's not just farmers in the village. It's cottage industries. It's people from different walks of life doing things. Village organization, as you are trying here. Krishna in his natural life is a village boy in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is a village. So in a village, you get all kinds of people with all kinds of skills, and the currency is bartering. It's not cash like that. It's just like, oh, you're the milkman. I need milk products, and I make cloth. I take whatever I weave cloth. So you need something to wear, and I need something to eat. So people are trading like that. So it might even sound impossible, in today's artificial society. Actually, I don't know in Canada, but in America, there's places in America, notably I think there's one in Oregon, maybe in Washington State too, where they have whole small towns, it's like a village, where they just have bartering. And they not only barter goods, they barter services. And they accumulate it, and the local bank is people, their job is to keep track of what people make and what people do, how they serve. And your bank account is based on what you offer, what you make, and how you serve. And people who live there, they swear by it. They say, this is so nice because we actually have real community, and everybody appreciates everybody. And so it happens at a small scale. But because of the media, because of the propaganda of how to enjoy, people, everybody's brainwashed by Maya's advertising, basically. So we are in the city, and the only reason we're in the city is to share Krishna consciousness. And to sharing Krishna consciousness might have to mean, using the same vehicles that people do, and the computers and whatever. Is that all right?
Yeah, so this is not applicable to the city life at all, Varnashrama?
Oh, no, because the reason we're in the cities, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made this point. The reason we're in the cities is because that's where the people are. Otherwise, we have no use for these cities, Prabhupada would say. So we're in the cities to reach the people. But, Prabhupada's strategy for attracting everybody, en masse to Krishna was to have temples in the city. Temples, you're like first responders at a disaster here. The disaster is everybody's living in Raja and Tamagun in these cities, and then that's the start. And then Prabhupada said in that quote about wherever we have got our center, there should be a Varnashram college. Then attached to this, near the city center, should be a college where we can actually start educating, first of all, ourselves, and then others about a more natural way to live, and Varna and ashram, and then you have to have a place to demonstrate that, and that's in the country ashram, the village setting. So it's city temple, Varnashram college, the farm, you could say farm community, but village is better because not everybody's a farmer. And then Prabhupada also liked it when in college towns, especially, or if your temple was near a college, if at the college you had a restaurant and a reading room. You remember restaurants and reading rooms? So it's really, it's a full kind of strategy of how to attract people to Krishna consciousness. Maharaj.
I don't know about any bartering system in Canada, but we do have these pioneer type villages.
What is it?
Pioneer.
Pioneer.
That is, you go, you pay a fee, and the people are get a salary for,
Oh, just showing how it was in the old days.
Yeah,
We have
that's
that
right.
too, yeah.
like Black Creek Pioneer Villages
Uh-huh.
in Toronto, it's near York
Yes.
University. There's a few of them. Upper Canada Village closer to Ottawa. There's a Ukrainian one near in Alberta. They're kind of all over the place. They're all
Ukrainian
over.
one means they're speaking Ukrainian?
No, when Ukrainians came here, they
Oh.
settled during the Russian Revolution.
Oh, okay.
They roughed it up.
Uh-huh.
They had to rough it up, so they got that there. And yeah, that's it's very inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have when the French came to
Quebec.
Upper Canada, which is Ontario, just an hour and a half north of here. There was called Sainte Marie among the Hurons.
Huh.
The black robes, the priests came.
Oh.
They were trying to convert the indigenous people. So
okay.
the foundation was still there, and they had all the drawings in France. So they recreated this thing, you know. So when you go there, they're in period costume, and they act like they're part. They've got names which are like the characters. Are very inspirational. Just how
Yeah.
they lived and how they got along, and also the problems that were there too. you know.
Yeah, 'cause
But
it's human
about the
beings.
simple living high thing, it's so neat. It's just so educational, so wonderful. Yeah, we
In
have them.
Massachusetts, we have Sturbridge Village, and in Virginia, we have Williamsburg. And in right near where Thoreau used to live in Massachusetts, they have Brook Farm, which is the first attempt at a transcendental community amongst the American transcendentalists. And people play the part of Emerson and Thoreau, and you know. Okay, we done? Is
Looks
the-
like some people think.
Oh,
that,
Prabhu, you had a question. One more. And then we're still going on the recording?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Prabhu, for today's presentation. My question is from a quote from a lecture and letter. So Prabhupada said
From a
quote-
letter?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Prabhupada said that actually all our devotees are supposed to be Brahmanas, and this movement is not for the Kripanas, it is meant for the Brahmanas.
Right.
We want to become ourselves Brahman, and we want to make others also Brahman.
Okay, what year is that letter written?
Letter is from 1970,
Yeah.
and the lecture is from 1973. Yeah, so
Yeah, that's the tune Prabhupada was singing in those days. But the more he stayed with us, his tune was more like the tune he sang in Bhagavatam. You're going to see it next lesson. I won't spoil it, but it's more of a Varnashram tune he was singing, and you'll see in the purport 4.8.36. Yeah, it was all about engaging people according to their own nature. Yeah. We're not interested in, ultimately, what did Lord Chaitanya say? I'm not a Brahmin, I am Das Anudas. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. So you'll see that next lesson. Okay.
and just I want to add more that Prabhupada always mentioned that we want to train Brahmana so that we can preach Krishna consciousness. So why Prabhupada didn't give that much importance to other Varnashram like Kshatriya and Vaishya
Well,
compared to Brahmana?
because first you have to have a head. That's what he said in one of these quotes. You need it. If we're headless, what can we do? You might have strong arms, strong legs, a good belly, but if you don't have a head, chicken with a head cut off, right? Yeah, the brains. That's coordinating. That's the command and control of the body. So similarly with that's why society is so crazy. There's no real people who know the values of life, and people who can give direction. And Prabhupada said, so we should combine the resources of the West with the vision, of the East, and then we got something going. Andha Pangu Nyaya, the blind man and the lame man have to combine. The lame man can get on the back of the blind man. Is that right? The lame man, can get on the back of the guy with vision. Does that sound right? I might have mixed it up. But we need both. We need people of vision, we need people of means. When Prabhupada started his Gita Nagari scheme, when he was just writing about it in the 40s, he said Gita Nagari will be started by a coalition of Shuchis, Brahmins, clean brain, and Srimatis, Vaishyas, people of means. That's how you launch it. People of means that can get the land, No, Srimatis is Shuchis and Srimatis. In this context, he said Brahminical types and Vaishya types. People who have resources and people who, to start it, people who have brains. And then you can fill in the varnas and ashrams. Okay, so tune in tomorrow for finding our mission in his mission. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.